So this is how we wind up at this time every Friday. This is how we get here because we chatter and yap all the
Yeah.
time before. Earnings makes the world go round. Let's move to the next slide. Big earnings this week, of course, a lot of them. Um, the big thing of the week, of course, was Trump and Xi meeting to discuss a whole bunch of trade issues. Apparently, they're agreeing on a one-year trade truce. And I will say the biggest thing I noticed was a lot of the rare earth stocks fell this week. Those have been some of the stuff that have been being held up by this potential between, the obviously China controls like a lot of rare earth reserves, and that's kind of been the thing we've been hearing about from some of these stocks. You've heard about investments in the LACs of the world, and I think at least another. And a lot of those stocks fell this week. And earlier in the week, too, gold was pulling back, we noticed as well. It eventually caught a bid and has bounced since once they started the meeting and after. Meta and Microsoft had earnings. They fell on earnings due to AI spending fears, excuse me. While Google, on the other hand, they gained big time, and apparently they had growth in the search area, in YouTube, and the cloud segments. And then Amazon beat today, beat on AWS growth. We saw Apple shares rising despite the fact that they showed China weakness. So we had at least five of the Mag 7 report this week. And like you said earlier, markets have they've been up and they've kind of been in the same general vicinity from where we started the week to some degree. We'll see what kind of move we get towards the end of the week here, or by the end of the day here. It is the end of the month, so who knows with some kind of end of the month flows. Um, to no surprise at all, the Fed cut rates 25 basis points. We're now at 4%. So yeah, it's getting it's getting harder and harder to justify putting some money in a CD. But it's you still got a lot of you still got a lot of chance there. You can make some money on that. Bank of Canada. It was also a bonanza week for central banks. Bank of Canada, they cut 25 basis points to 2.25. ECB holds at 2%, and BOJ they maintained. So you can see we're still the highest. So you talk about 4%. We're still like among the highest in the world. On
Yeah,
our
that's Trump's argument.
yeah,
Love him or hate him. I mean, that's his argument. I mean, most of the time he comes out with the arguments from out of left field. This one seems pretty logical. Like,
yeah.
you know.
And you figure these they all talk, so it is kind of interesting. And I can't even believe it, but I actually listened to some of the meeting. And I mean I actually listened to some of his Powell's talk after, and he
Yeah.
was talking about they asked one good question I think was, do you think the idea of cutting these rates fuels a lot more spending in the AI space? I thought it was interesting. He said he doesn't think so, but I mean it is something to watch, I think.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. I think the quarter point was the biggest non-event of 2025.
You're right, and it was reflected in markets. We talked about it last week when we were coming in. We showed the SPX curve, and it was basically a non-event. We did
Yep.
move though. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
VIX and VVIX both positive on the week. It was as of last night's close, 1691 and 102. So we're still over 16, which 1% moves in either direction. SPX, VVIX being over 100 tells you there's a lot of activity in VIX options. Let's
That's
move to the
for,
next slide.
that's for sure.
But now to mention this, but yeah, we've seen a big move here. The biggest move happening earlier in the week. China purchased its first U.S. soybeans from this year's harvest. Big moves more recently. I kind of like you, and I think you've summarized this well. I feel like this kind of feels like a buy the rumor, sell the news situation. I don't. I've looked at trying to sell a call spread in soybeans and the beans. I really haven't been interested in it. Honestly, I don't feel like you get a whole bang for your buck. I don't know about you.
I'm in the same place. I'm the world's worst commodity trader. So I just try to lose money in gold and just keep it there, keep all my losing trades there, and just go someplace else with my money to find winning trades.
Yeah, but if it gets more extended, maybe it becomes an interesting trade. But right now, this is just day-to-day moves. If you look at the chart, you can see basically we're at the highs going back up to last October, actually.
I mean, you have relatively low, you have high monthly implied volatility relative to itself, but low implied volatility. I mean, it's under 20 usually. It's 22 right now. So I don't know. Not my thing.
Yeah, it's just been one of the biggest points of contention in this whole U.S.-China trade war, right? China often purchases a lot of soybeans, and they had backed off those purchases. They also had backed off the amount of exports for the rare earth metals. So I tell you, Tone, all this type of stuff makes for a fascinating market, man. I mean,
It
you've just
does.
seen a lot of stuff move off of these type of things.
Yeah, you can never count yourself out of a trade when you're trading commodities, especially something like, corn, wheat, and soybeans. They could move exponentially at any time. But then with that low implied volatility, that's what hurts me. So, you got to look for something with defined risk, I believe.
I totally agree. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so right here we got a chart just for the month of. I was just curious, like again, we've seen a lot of movement in gold this month. I feel like all of these are certain, so it's just ways of money. You know what I mean? Gold, obviously, the gold standard. You got the dollar. You got the 10-year. Obviously, you can get a yield on the dollar, and then you got Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, Bitcoin October quite never really materialized here. Gold, we know it was at highs. We know the big fade happened around the whatever that was, 17th or 18th or 19th. I don't remember.
Yep,
And
yep.
but we're still up 5%, close to 5% on the month here. And dollar's been strong a little bit recently, and the yield is strong. I don't know what it means when the 10-year yield, the dollar, and gold are having a decent month. I'm not exactly sure what the hell that means, but I know it's weird. I know
Yeah, I
that.
don't know what it means for the market either, but I know it's weird. But this is a great illustration. I always say, Bitcoin hasn't participated; it's under participated. But I didn't realize. I mean, it was by 15% when compared to the best product, which is gold right now. And even looking at the dollar, how it's underperformed, even yield, how it's underperformed. So this is a good visualization of the four. So I like it.
And it tells you too, like just because I think I know I was a little. And again, I to be honest with you, I really didn't trade bonds a whole lot. I know something big you guys did for the years. I didn't really look at bonds much prior to coming to Tasty. I really didn't, and I learned a lot more. As a matter of fact, my first show was with Frank and Pete, where I was doing a lot of future stuff. Again, an options guy who had done little future stuff in his personal, and I learned a lot more about bonds and yields. And so it's kind of interesting to see yields moving. But I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, why aren't yields down with the idea of the rate cut? But again, 10-year doesn't really get that much affected by that, more 2 year.
No, no, no. It's the longer end of the curve for sure.
Let's move to the next slide. This is an interesting one. The ratio of large caps to small caps is the highest that we've seen in 25 years, honestly. And you wonder if there's a signs of reversal. One of the things that I noticed on, God, it's been such a busy week. I can't remember. I think it was on Wednesday. I think it was during the Fed meeting. Was we saw a big move. I don't know if you noticed it in the IWM. IWM was kind of like down on the day, and it ended up going up 1% after the meeting, after he talked and all that. And I think there was somewhat of I can't remember if there was a fader yesterday or not, but there's been a lot of move in the small caps. And I know everybody's always trying to figure out, okay, is it the small caps time? And they've moved a lot recently, but large caps are still outpacing them by a wide margin. You wonder if this is eventually going to change or not.
Yeah, you look at, how what's large cap? I mean, if you look at the Dow or maybe S&P, they were going straight up, which illustrates in your graph right here, going straight up. In the last couple of days, they've been going a little bit more sideways to lower as the Russell is kind of oscillated back and forth in some violent moves, as you just pointed out, and then catching a small little bid. I mean, the conventional wisdom usually is if interest rates go lower, that's good for small cap stocks that have to borrow money and stuff like that. But they also talked about, easing going into the next quarter and into the end of the year, being not easing, maybe no more rate cuts. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword there for interest rates. So I think the Russell is probably going to be one of the more volatile moving forward, even though the Ivy rank is basically the same as the S&P right now at 16. So we'll see if that changes. The correlation between the two, I mean, that correlation hasn't closed its gap at all. I know Tom was trading that for a while. I think it's one of the harder pairs trades to make.
Absolutely. I never liked that trade, honestly. It's hard to do. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, you want to do NASDAQ, S&P, I think that's a little bit easier, but Russell, you'd rather be just long one or short one.
Yeah, but even in that Nasdaq S&P at this point, with those seven, if you will, being such a large part of S&P, they basically move the same. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of difficult. Speaking of, you know what? Speaking of IWM,
Sure.
You got to look up. You got to look up the holdings in there. I just, and again, it changes. There's whatever what they call it. Every quarter they do the rebalance, whatever. But I just looked at it recently. I didn't realize some of these names that we've been talking a lot recently. The BE, that Bloom Energy, IonQ, RGTI. These are some of the top 10 names in the IWM. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying I didn't know. It's kind of interesting.
Right. I didn't know either. I remember like what was it? Like Amazon or something was in the Russell. Some stock, some big stock, I forget, was basically, the whole
Like the
Russell.
largest one.
Yeah, it was like one of the largest. It was 10 or 15% of the Russell. It was crazy. But Bloom Energy, since you mentioned it, Nick just got out of a trade where he was down, multiples of dollars because Bloom Energy is the type, and we're talking about BE,
Yeah.
type of stock that go from 80 to
I
120
know.
in a heartbeat and back down, and he got whipped all around, but was able yesterday, I think, to take it off for a small profit or a scratch. So. Goodbye to Bloom Energy. It's a tough one to trade. That's not directional. I don't know if it looks so juicy selling premium,
I know.
but I think you have to have defined risk in there too.
You're preaching to the choir. I'm playing with fire. I just sold the upside call in there the other day, the 180 strike. I think stock is like 120 or something. I don't know where it is now, but
It's 133 this morning, up around $5.
I'm playing with fire right now.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of intestinal
Yeah.
fortitude.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move to the last slide here. As Vanetta said, stealing straight from her, Netflix announced a 10-for-1 stock split. Currently, one of 10 stocks in the S&P 500 with a price of about 1,000. There's also them possibly bidding for Warner Brothers Media. We just did a little piece here, if you didn't see it, about how stock splits affect stocks. Like Tony said, essentially, I mean, there's going to be 1/10 on the stock size, right? If it's trading $1,000, it's going to be down to 100, but your options are going to be times 10 at that point. So keep an eye out for that.
Mhm.
Delta and United call on Congress to immediately end the government shutdown. They're plagued by staffing shortages. I've been seeing different things about. I'm glad I'm not flying right now. I hope Mike, Nick, and Katie get.
We're flying next week.
Yeah, have you had any issues?
So far, no, but I mean, we'll see.
Good. Good. Qualcomm shares, it gets lost because it was so long ago, but Qualcomm shares had a huge rip earlier in the week on the debut of AI data center chips to compete with NVIDIA. NVIDIA also announced separate $1 billion announcements with Nokia and the AI startup Poolside, as Vanetta mentioned. So they're spreading money around. I've been saying, man, yo, what year is this sometimes? We got Nokia moving, you got IBM moving big, you got, I mean, it's wild. Some of these names. I keep saying to Nick, I'm like, look, this ain't your father's IBM. I was like, well, actually, it is your father's IBM because IBM used to move like this back when you used to trade on the floor.
That's correct.
Wow.
It's back to the 90s.
Barring any change, I don't think there's going to be an October NFP report next Friday, and we still haven't received the September NFP report. And finally, research October 29th, the OJ, why leverage ETF struggle over time. Check it out.